today I am with Kathleen Hallal, who is the mother of three teens who were diagnosed with autoimmune issues at a young age. She became aware of environmental factors when searching for ways to improve their health. Over the years, she spoke with doctors, farmers, retired government scientists, university researchers, and others who all told her the same thing, namely that pesticides used on crops and in the environment had a definite negative effect on children's health. Fully 54% of US children now have chronic health condition, and the numbers are climbing. Wanting to do something about this, she founded Non-Toxic Communities with her partner Diane Carpinoni of Dover, New Hampshire, and they both began to work to bring about change in their communities with the help of Beyond Pesticides. Working through her district's PTA, she led a movement to convince her school district and then her city to adopt organic methods and to stop using toxic products for maintenance. Kathleen served on the Mayor's Advisory Council, attending to environmental matters. The city of Irvine now enjoys parks that proudly post signs touting organic maintenance. Kathleen and Diana are working to guide others to successfully introduce organic landscaping practices for their communities and helping to connect staff with professionals who can teach them the methods that result in municipalities that are both safe and beautiful. Both Kathleen and Diana have been trained and certified by the New England Organic Farming Association. And the city where she was able to make it become completely organic is Irvine, California. And Diana, she lives on the East Coast and works with many cities and towns and states on that end. And so the name of the group is Non-Toxic Communities. You can find them at nontoxiccommunities.com. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here today. I truly believe in what you do and what you were able to accomplish. And I know we're going to be able to enlighten people and teach people many of the information that you've learned and how they could do the same thing, how they can help change their community. So that's what I hope, that we spark some people, listening to this today, that they go out and do that and make this world a better place.
I hope so too. That's the goal, to have Irvine and other cities who've done this successfully be the examples for other cities and for it to spread.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, you kind of covered it in the introduction. I'm a mom of three boys. I still live in Irvine with my husband and our dog, and I work with other cities and communities that contact non-toxic communities, and we help advise them in the ways that we've been successful, and how to approach their city council, their mayor, their school district with the information necessary to kind of open eyes and bring about the realization that we shouldn't be spraying toxic products around our kids. We shouldn't be using toxic fertilizers. We shouldn't be spraying pesticides or herbicides, and that organic methods can be very successful. It's just more of a common sense approach, and it can be tough sometimes to bust the myths. The chemical industry has convinced everyone that we just can't live without their chemicals, but the truth is we can and we should.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Maybe give me some more details about how you go about this.
Well, I guess I can start with I think in general, there's a lot of awareness now about Roundup specifically because of the lawsuits and glyphosate. I think that people don't realize a couple of things. One, how much of it is actually in our food supply, which I won't go into in great detail because today we're going to focus on non-toxic communities and landscaping, but it is all around us. It's the most used herbicide in history, and it is used so heavily. It's in our rain, it's in our drinking water, it's in the air, it gets into us through our skin. We breathe it in. In addition to what we eat, in addition to what's sprayed around us. So we are surrounded by glyphosate, and the lawsuits against Roundup, which the juries were so infuriated by what they learned about Monsanto's cover-up of the dangers, and that they knowingly have exposed people to a carcinogen, and people continue to be exposed. The juries awarded huge amounts to the plaintiffs just to try and get the message out to people that, the EPA is not protecting us as they should. And we are exposed to this on a daily basis, and it's causing a lot of cancer cases. It's exposing people to carcinogens. And what's good about it is that it's really raising awareness to people. They're looking around and they're saying, oh my gosh, I see my landscape guy using this, or I see them using this on my school campus. And it's really raised awareness, which is wonderful. But the message from non-toxic communities is that it's not just glyphosate. That's the tip of the iceberg. It is probably the most broadly used herbicide, but there's 2,4-D and all kinds of other products that are mixed in with fertilizers and sprayed around the campuses, and then pesticides are used, and what kind of cleaning products are used around the schools. And there's, there are all kinds of things that really are contributing to the demise of children's health. And I know that sounds alarmist, but if you speak with endocrinologists, who are the scientists who are really looking at this and its effect on multiple generations, not only the kids today and their lives, but it's everything we're exposed to is passed down over at least 4 generations. And it's cumulative. So your great, great, great grandchildren will have been exposed to things that they weren't exposed to in their lifetime, but the toxins are passed down through generations. And this is the latest science. And people used to focus on toxicology. You probably heard the expression, the dose makes the poison. But what really is concerning is not that rather old-fashioned kind of science. It's not that toxicology doesn't have its place, but the assumption was always that if you weren't exposed to a whole lot of some toxin or some synthetic product, that you'd be safe, right? The less you're exposed to, the safer you are. What all the latest science is finding is that these products can cause harm. They just cause different kinds of harm at different levels of exposure. So at teeny tiny amounts, synthetic products might do one thing. And in the middle, there might actually be, fewer causes for worry in the middle amount. It depends. And then in greater amounts, you'll have a different kind of effect. And the effects of these chemicals they're finding, I mean, they're really deep. They cause genetic changes, they cause cancer, they cause problems with fertility. Children, when girls are born, they're born with all the eggs they're ever going to have. So they're exposed to whatever they're exposed to in the womb, and then in the schoolyard, and as they grow, whatever they're exposed to, that affects their eggs, and they're not getting any new ones. So it's very important to talk about, the overall exposure of these products, especially to children, but also to adults. For men, sperm counts are way down, and the sperm count is affected by environmental toxins. So these are things we should all be thinking about more as a package. And at non-toxic communities, what we teach is organic landscaping methods and why it's important. And we also put the professional landscapers in touch with professional organic landscapers so they can get the training they need to learn new methods. Right now, the training programs, mostly what's out there, are chemically based. They're run by the chemical dealers, or they're funded by the chemical companies, and the guys are taught this is how you go. You spray, you go along, you spray, and then you use another product if you have another problem, and then you spray some more, and they're selling their product. And the irony is, the more you use, the more you need. So actually, these synthetic products destroy the whole system's biology. And so you come up with more symptoms of disease, which is fungus, molds, weeds, things like that, very hardened soil that can't absorb the water. So the water, runs off with all the products in it. Here in Irvine, goes right in the ocean. So it's really a problem. When you use these products, you are destroying the soil biology, and you're destroying the ability of the plants to live a healthier life. And weeds are actually oftentimes a symptom of unhealthy soil. It's not to say with organic methods you won't have any weeds. You will. But if you eventually get the weed seeds out of the system after a couple cycles, you will have very few weeds, and they'll be much more manageable. the more products you use that destroy the soil, the harder the soil becomes. So for example, with turf, say, the grass roots don't go as deep because the soil is harder. So everything's up on the surface. So there's more water evaporation. You have higher water use, higher water waste because it runs off the top when the soil's compacted. It's hard for the kids to play. And then when you use organic practices, you kind of heal the soil. It becomes spongier. The water can go deeper, the roots grow deeper, so you have less evaporation and you have more efficient water use. Harvard has discovered, they've been completely organic for years, and they've discovered that they save 30% of their water just by having healthier soil.
Mm. Yes, and that would be huge in California or places where
That's right.
dry.
That's correct.
Yeah. How did you go about when you reached out to the city? Tell me a little bit of how that process worked to get them to open their eyes to what was happening and to persuade them to go organic.
Well, I've always been aware of children's health because of my own boys, and I've been kind of known for that. My background is in art history. I have my master's degree in art history and museum studies, so I'm a researcher. And when my kids got sick, I started researching nutrition, children's health, and I started learning from all the farmers and scientists I'd met about biology, gut flora, soil biology, and how it's all connected and how it really affects our health, not only physically, but also mentally. There is a direct gut-brain connection. So I kind of started learning about all this science as a way to heal our kids, and our family went completely organic. Their health did get better. And it was interesting because we had a neurologist who was very mainstream, PhD from Johns Hopkins, extremely, he did think outside the box because he specialized in helping children with neurological issues. But when I went to him and talked to him about going organic and avoiding glyphosate in our kids' diet, he went and researched it and he came back. He said, "Oh my gosh," he said, that could be the best thing you've done for them of all the therapies. He said, "That's huge." He said, "I had no idea." And he saw the effects that glyphosate has on gut flora and your whole system, liver, kidneys, your overall function. And he said, absolutely, you should go organic. And then I just continued to learn about also things in the environment, because I noticed around the schoolyard, around our kids, that there'd be these little yellow warning signs that the state says they have to post. And the products they were using, Roundup, I think it was called Roundup Supermax or something, was the same as what the farmers told me they were using in the fields that were, negatively affecting the health of the animals, their reproductive abilities, or weed growth, producing super weeds, like all these farmers' problems, mycotoxins in the soil and all this stuff. I noticed they were using the same products around our kids' school, and our kids were playing. They'd get out of school and the signs would be around and the kids would be digging in the planters, put the signs right there. The kids wouldn't notice. The moms were standing around, parents wouldn't notice. And I knew the kids were just going to get right in the car and eat a snack, and no one was going to wash their hands. And I was kind of like, a light bulb went off. I thought, wow, this is really dangerous too. So I'd been active with my district in my PTA for years for arts programs for kids. And I also helped to fundraise for the Irvine Public Schools Foundation, the board that raises funds for arts programs and nursing. And so when my arts term was up in the PTA, my friend said, "Well, Kathleen, you're so concerned about children's health. There's a space as the head of health and safety for our city's district. Why don't you take that?" So I went in and I took that, and I brought in pediatricians and scientific reports. Well, a pediatrician came to speak to all the presidents, but I brought a lot of data each meeting, science on the glyphosate, science on pesticides in children. Pediatrician, I brought in a crop pesticide expert. And then at the very end of my tenure, the IARC, International Agency on Research for Cancer, came in with their declaration that they felt that glyphosate was a probable carcinogen to human beings. And so with that, I went to my superintendent. I was friends with my superintendent from my years serving on the fundraising board. And I knew he was kind of aware and always looking out for children's safety. His name's Terry Walker. He's a great guy. And he said, yeah, he said, you should go meet with maintenance and we should talk about doing this. And then the PTA presidents had a vote It was unanimous. All the PTA presidents, I think at that time it was 26 or 28 presidents, all voted to ask the school board to stop the use of toxic products around our children. And so after our school district agreed to go with that, we then approached the city. Some other people approached me, and as a group, we went to approach the city and ask the city if they would do the same. And our city council works very closely with our school district to provide the best education possible for our kids. Our city is very well known for its education, but it's also known as the safest city in America for its size. It's had that award for numerous years. And so, I said, well, if you're going to say it's the safest city, you need to also think about environmental concerns. And they agreed. The city council and the mayor, they voted unanimously to go along with the school district. So then we got the school district and the city to agree to employ organic methods, and they agreed to learn the organic methods. We brought in an expert, probably the top national expert in organic landscaping, who he's been in it for 40 years now, maybe longer. And he started out for a few decades or a couple decades as a conventional guy. He used all the products, he used everything that, industry sort of sells. And he thought that was great until his dog died. And he started thinking about it. He's like, well, what are we applying to our lawns? What did I expose my dog to? And he started looking into it, and he got involved with New England Farming Association, and they've established some really good training programs that are tried and true. At least 20 years of success they've had with organic landscaping. And he works nationwide now. His name is Chip Osborne of Osborne Organics, and he works from New England to Hawaii. And he works on fields everywhere. He's got a 5-year contract out here at Pepperdine University. He works for professional sports teams, baseball and soccer, and he works for, wealthy, individuals who have large estates. And he's also worked for the U.S. Department of Forestry. I mean, he's not like small potatoes. He knows what he's doing. He has a lot of experience in all kinds of situations. And so we brought him in for some training, and then our city landscaping superintendent was willing to give it a try. And he figured out a lot of methods on his own as well. And now we have just beautiful parks and fields. It's 5 years now, going on 5 years. And we have an amazing organically maintained city, and it's more beautiful than ever. If anything, our landscaping has improved. And I will say that our city council did have to spend a bit more for organic landscaping to bring it in. Normally you have to spend a bit more maybe for the first couple of years, but then your costs go way down when you factor in water savings, and you may have to have more manpower, but then the products cost less and you save water. So it kind of balances out eventually. One difficulty we have in Irvine is that we use reclaimed water, and reclaimed water is high in chlorine and salt. So that's one thing we still have to tackle, but I am working on that with Irvine, and I did find some people who have a remedy for that. So once the water is clean and it doesn't set back our soil biological cycle, we will start saving money. But the important part is that our city council said, you know what, we can shift funds, we can spend a little more in landscaping and not expose our children and families to carcinogens. So that was wonderful, and it's really worked out well in Irvine. Everyone loves it, and you'll show some pictures later, I'm sure, of our park. So
exactly. Can you explain what reclaimed water is?
Yes, in California, as everyone probably knows, we have a lot of problems with water shortages and droughts, and so we do our best to conserve water. And certain communities where landscaping is involved, they will reclaim water, which is kind of, they grab it from the storm ducts and the drains and so on, and they kind of add chlorine and salt to it, so it's safe enough to use in landscaping, but maybe not safe enough to drink. And so that's what reclaimed water is. So in Irvine, when they built the city, I think it was 72, they put in reclaimed water so we could save water and use that in the landscaping, which is a really great idea for water conservation. But when you're trying to keep the soil biology healthy, it poses a couple challenges, but it can be treated I've been speaking with engineers, and there is a solution, and even that water can be used for landscaping and organic landscaping, and eventually we will be saving money and water in Irvine.
Mm, very good. Yeah, well, I know I've seen it in other places in California. So, and I never really understood what it was. So I'm glad you explained that. I didn't know. So the negative about that is it might be pulling pesticides still from people who use pesticides in their lawns, or, because it's water. That's
Not a whole lot, but probably because our schools and city probably have the lion's share of landscape in Irvine, but HOAs still use a lot of pesticides, and that's a battle we have to get into from HOA to HOA. So there is probably some pesticide residue in the water, but the bigger concern is the salt and chlorine that they add to the water before they send it back out to make sure they're not spreading.
Yeah. Very interesting. Okay. Let me see if I can share my screen and pull up this. Okay. So this is from one of the parks in Irvine called Turtle Rock. And it says the city of Irvine is proud of its beautiful parks and facilities. It talks about how you guys are organically maintained landscaping. So that's good because the community is made aware, because, maybe not everybody knows these things. And then this is from December 2020. Can you tell me about this picture?
At Non-Toxic Communities, we help people who reach out to us who are trying to get their city or community or HOA or school district to go organic. And we helped the group in Philadelphia. I think they're called Non-Toxic Philly or Non-Toxic Philadelphia. And they've recently been successful in convincing their city council to go organic and stop using toxic pesticides throughout their park system. So there were a lot of people on board to support them, and we were part of that group. So yeah, Philadelphia is going to be going organic, and I think that Chip Osborne is going to be helping them. The expert I talked about earlier who'd come out to Irvine, I think he's going to be helping them to convert. And it's interesting. Citizens will come forward, and it seems so obvious to ask them to stop spraying toxins around our families and our communities. But sometimes landscaping departments can be resistant to that because they are experts and they work very hard at their jobs, and they're usually constricted by budget, and they've only been trained in chemical methods, and they've been trained to understand that organic methods can't work and that their work won't look as good as they use organics. And I know that in Philadelphia, they will learn that organic methods work, and they will be very proud in the end. Even the most determined landscaper who just is convinced that organic can't work, their eyes are open the more they go along and the more they see that it works. They'll be very proud of their parks. Their parks will actually improve. They'll become more green, more lush, and they'll just have less synthetic chemical use. So, but Philadelphia is getting going now, and it's very exciting. And what's extra exciting to me is that there's something called environmental racism. It's a term that addresses the fact that kids in poor communities tend to be exposed to more toxins, and inner city kids in Philadelphia, like other inner city kids, have a healthy dose. And it's really a shame. And I think that was one of the main impetuses that got the council going to protect the kids that live in inner cities, especially during COVID. My gosh, think of these kids that might live in smaller apartments, and their only respite is to go out to their local parks, right? And if those parks have been treated with toxic fertilizers and pesticides, that's just really a shame. There's kind of no escape. So I'm very excited for Philadelphia, and we were proud to help them to get this passed.
That is such a wonderful, wonderful accomplishment. So can you tell me some other cities or states that are working on this or have been able to make these changes?
Well, we have a lot listed on our website. Okay. New York City recently banned glyphosate from their parks. the whole state of Connecticut, the whole state of New York passed legislation protecting school kids. They can't use synthetic toxins on any of the schoolyards. In Connecticut, that's for all schools K through 8th grade. In New York, it's K through 12. And but in terms of statewide legislation, that's hard in a state like California, where the pesticide industry has so much power in Sacramento. But I do work on bills. I'm working on one right now with our Assemblyman Choi, who's a Republican assemblyman in California, and he was mayor of Irvine, and he was part of that unanimous vote to ban toxins. And living in Irvine, he's seen how well it works and how beautiful it is. And it's just a no-brainer. Once you see organic methods and how well they work, it just makes no sense to spray synthetic toxins anymore. So I'm working with him on a couple of school pilot site bills and trying to get that passed. But the chemical industry has a powerful lobby in our state, I'm not going to lie. So, but there are a lot of communities, you know, my friend Diana in Dover, she finally got Dover to switch over. And, you know, a lot of the arguments that industries brought forth, like, oh, you'll have more clover, so you'll have a bee problem. Well, ironically, there are no more bees, right? So that's not an issue, but it's never been an issue in Irvine. I mean, and one of my kids has a bee allergy, so there's never been an issue at all. You know, the clover is actually very good for the turf. It brings in nitrogen. It's a natural way to put in nitrogen. Instead of covering it with synthetic nitrogen, a little bit of clover mixed in with the grass is a really great idea. I don't know. And if the patches get too big, you can manage that. You just cut it out and put a little turf down. You know, it's kind of like using your head instead of calling the guy to buy more chemicals.
Yeah.
It's all common sense. But I think they're definitely over 150. I think we might have over 200 cities, areas that have gone organic or have gone to some measures where they've either banned Roundup or gone to organic measures. We do not actually promote strict Roundup bans at non-toxic communities because that doesn't address the other problems. For example, in my own HOA recently, I woke up one day and all the grass on the median between the street and the houses by the sidewalk, all of our grass was dead. And I looked at it and I thought, oh no, they used something really bad, because it was like really quick, everything died. And I did some research and I found out they told me, they said, you really don't have to worry. It's a water-based solution. It's not Roundup. And I was like, so what was it? And they gave me the name and I looked it up and it was glufosinate. Glufosinate is a cousin of glyphosate. And in communities where the landscaping guys, you know, you fight and they finally agree to stop using Roundup. Okay, our community doesn't use Roundup. And everyone's like, yay, after all that work. And then they bring in the glufosinate the next week. And
good point. It needs to be organic. Yeah.
Well, not necessarily.
No.
Ideally, yes, but not necessarily. There are products they can use. You have to be aware of these, what we call regrettable substitutions or unfortunate substitutions. And glufosinate, though, but they're billing it now as, oh, we don't use Roundup anymore, you're safe, it's water-based and so on. But I knew from talking to the farmers years ago that glufosinate is the second major chemical that they use in GM farming. And glufosinate is a cousin of glyphosate. It's really not that much safer, if at all. And it's also extremely powerful. So they shouldn't sell it as something that's safer. It doesn't technically have to be organic. That's the first thing we should look for. There are some products that are very low toxicity that would still be acceptable. Like, for example, horticultural vinegar. They can use that. And maybe in my neighborhood, instead of going by once with glufosinate, you know, they didn't warn our residents. They sprayed our neighbors' kids when they were out playing. They sprayed dogs. Dogs were sick. People's windows were open. It was a windy day. It was like the worst possible situation. But they could have used horticultural vinegar or some other organic product. And maybe they would have had to go and make 2 sprays or an extra round. But it would have been worth the investment to pay the guy to do an extra round rather than exposing all of us to a carcinogen or a product that, I mean, if you look up glufosinate, if you look up what's called the SDS sheet, which is the, government approval sheet, which talks about, what it might do to you. If you look that up, it's horrific. And so you need to be careful when you're pushing for a Roundup ban, because it's not enough. It needs to be an implementation of an organic program, or as close to organic as you can get.
Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about the slide that's up right now. So the states that use the most and least pesticides in America.
Right. So this is overall pesticides. And I found this online. And naturally, California is the highest because we're such a big agricultural state. But really, the pesticide use in this state is out of control. We also have very high rates of autism, children's health issues, reproductive issues, miscarriages, et cetera, especially in farming communities. It's kind of, the more you're exposed to these things, the more you see it in children and generations and women especially. It's really tragic, but people should know this. People should know this. And what's interesting, if you look down at the end of the list at, Oregon, it is one of the least. It's in the least used columns, but there's still a whole lot used of herbicides, pesticides on Christmas trees. A lot of Christmas trees are raised in Oregon. They're full of junk. And then just in general, the Department of Forestry sprays quite a bit. So people in Oregon in general seem more aware, but I was surprised to learn that they use a lot of products still in forests.
Really? But I am too. I didn't realize that. Jeez.
Yeah, they still use quite a bit.
Why? Why do they need to use that? They just think they need to use it.
They do it, if they have problems with beetles or I don't know what it is, diseased trees areas. Maybe they try and clear them out. I haven't done a lot of work directly with the Department of Forestry. I just was told by people that I met in Oregon that said, you'd be very surprised. I went up there to speak when they had when they were voting on a GMO labeling bill. And I learned quite a bit. And they said, yeah, see our beautiful forests, they fly over them with helicopters and they dump, herbicides and pesticides on them. And I was just shocked to learn that. But at any rate, in California, most of our communities are heavily landscaped, right? Especially a city like Irvine, very pristine looking, perfect hedges, perfect lawns, it's all landscaped, whereas if you go to a state like Connecticut, it's all kind of wild landscape, like it's not very manicured. And it's kind of nice. They kind of let stuff go. And I think that we should have more of that in California. I'm not saying we should make it look not as nice, because it is agreeable to drive around and have a beautiful
native plants would
but more natural native plants. That's one of the tenets that they teach with organic landscaping. Plant plants that belong in your ecosystem, that are natural to your ecosystem. They'll require a lot less maintenance. You'll have a lot less trouble with them. So here, this chart is specific to glyphosate. I was really shocked by the Naperville, Chicago figure that it's number one. I was especially shocked because in a state like California, we are landscaping, mowing, trimming, 365 days a year, right? We don't get a lot of snow. So we're going all the time. A state like California or Florida, you're always landscaping year round because you have nice weather. But here, in a city like Chicago, that's frozen for the winter, so nothing's growing. Look how high their glyphosate use is. It's unbelievable, but it's shocking to see these figures. And different states have different laws, but one of the steps that we encourage people to take is to write to their school district and write to their city and contact them and say, I would like a list of what you're applying and when and how much and so on. Certain states have laws that they have to divulge that. I think other states might not, but be persistent. It takes effort. They don't want to share it with you, or maybe they're not keeping very good records, but it's good to know. It's good to ask. And that's always a really good first step to find out. But this is just glyphosate. Think about that. That's just glyphosate. That's not 2,4-D that they use, glyphosate is called a non-selective herbicide, meaning it doesn't select out what it's going to kill and what it's not going to kill. It kills everything it touches. And glyphosate is super convenient because you just have to get a couple drops on a plant and it goes down through the roots. If you've seen any of the ads, it goes right to the roots, out into the soil, and it kills the whole thing. So it's super convenient. You're going to slop a few drops on it and bam, dead. So that's why landscapers really like it. But that's the problem with humans too. I mean, it penetrates the cells. It penetrates us in the same way. It goes to the skin, goes down, goes inside, and some of it goes out. But the latest science has found that it's cumulative in our systems. Here's a side effect too. If you don't want to think about children and mothers' health and our community's health and our dogs, birds are disappearing, bees are disappearing. We're using so many pesticides between the farming and the landscape that we are losing our pollinators and we're losing our birds. And they're the canaries in the coal mine, quite literally. We should stop using so much of these products. I'd like to see us stop altogether.
Right.
And start thinking about healthier solutions because they are out there.
Yes, and what you said before, people need to be proactive and care about this. And I mean, you could start at home, that you don't go out and buy those pesticides and poisons, and you learn how to, work with organic options. I mean, I haven't used those things at my place, and my land is fine. I kind of let nature, I have a hillside and it's native plants and some things that were planted, and yeah, I get some weeds, but I mean, it's just kind of like a cycle. And actually when it's all green, it looks beautiful. So, but I'm trying to keep my family healthy. I don't want to expose them to those pesticides and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, you might have to weed twice or weed by hand, or take out a tea kettle with boiling water and pour it over the weed, and then as the ground gets wet, then you pull it up, it comes up roots and all. These things can be done. It just takes a little bit of effort. And I was at Lowe's the other night, and you have to walk by this huge Roundup display, and I'm stunned that it's still on the market. I'm stunned that anyone would still buy it. How could you not have heard about the lawsuits? But industry will tell you, oh, the juries were soft-hearted and they just felt sorry for the people with cancer, but you can't really prove there was a link. Well, actually, the lawsuit was about the labeling and the fact that Monsanto did not put warnings on the packages that they were a probable carcinogen, which Monsanto knew and covered up and paid scientists to write false reports. Actually, that's wrong. What they did was they paid scientists to sign off on reports that Monsanto themselves wrote. And that's some of the stuff that Carrie Gillum, the Reuters reporter, uncovered that was presented in the lawsuit. And Carrie's written a book about all their shenanigans, a couple. One is called Whitewash, and the other one is called The Monsanto Papers. And you can also look up the Monsanto Papers online if you go to the law firm Baum Hedlund. They're, I think, based in Santa Monica, and they were the sort of the lead law firm that won the first few lawsuits. And the Monsanto Papers are really shocking when you see the correspondence between Monsanto and these scientists that they literally bought to put out information that they'd written that was untrue. So, we all should fight not only to ban Roundup, but also to have organic landscaping methods brought into our communities. We pay for these things through our homeowners association fees or our taxes. We are paying for these systems of maintenance. And it's time that we stood up and we said, no, we choose organic. We don't want you to use toxic products around our communities anymore. It's very important to stand up. If you go to our website, we'll give you the tools, we'll support you, and we'll guide you so that you can do this.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. And these pictures are showing the organic fields and how beautiful and green they are in Irvine.
That's right. Here's my son's baseball team on an organic field, and our baseball fields are amazing. And down below is a lacrosse field. You can see the grass. It looks like, velvet. And it's great for the athletes because it's not so hard. We don't have dirt patches anymore. We don't have, that ground that's like concrete if the kids, fall down. And we don't have those sort of tufts of weeds we used to get mixed in that they could trip on, and literally sometimes our guys hand weed out there. I mean, that's how few weeds we have cropping up, because the healthier the soil is, the fewer weeds you get. And then you can either manage by hand or use safer products. There's a lot, actually less maintenance when you have a healthy organic system. Our parks are stunning. And they're much more beautiful than neighboring parks in other cities where they continue to use toxins. So I think that neighboring cities like Tustin and Newport Beach need to get on board and look at Irvine and say, okay, all they have to do is talk to our landscaping superintendent and copy what we're doing. They don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
thank you for sharing those pictures.
you're welcome. I mean, pictures tell 1,000 words. And I've been to meetings where the maintenance guys, if they don't want to switch over to organic, they'll show pictures of like horrible fields and they'll be like, oh, this is what organic looks like. It's so disgusting. And it's just lies, just lies. I would suggest to anyone that you get in a car and drive around Irvine, you will see how beautiful our parks are and how beautiful the school grounds are. Just go walk around. You'll see. And you'll be like, why isn't my city doing this? Why don't I have organic signs for our parks in Tustin, for example? Our kid played baseball, our son played baseball for so many years. And, when they would play on the Irvine fields, the parents would be so happy. They'd be like, oh, this is really luxurious. This is so much nicer than neighboring cities like Huntington Beach and Newport Beach and all that. Our fields are better. Sorry, they're better. And the players like them better and they're safer. And there's absolutely no excuse to continue using these products. There's no excuse, except maybe a lack of will to learn new methods and a lack of interest on the part of the city councils and the mayors to protect their citizens, to spend a little more and have safer environments for our kids, especially in the time of COVID, when our awareness about how important a strong immune system is. Why are we adding to all the toxins already out there in the environment that our families are exposed to? I hear people say, oh, the dose makes the poison, and also coffee causes cancer, bacon causes cancer, everything causes cancer. So why quit using these products? And, I just think, well, if everything causes cancer, which is true, there are a lot of things out there adding to our toxic burdens, especially on children. Since that's the case, it should be all the more important to us to stop using additional toxins on the fields that are unnecessary, completely unnecessary.
Yes, and when they might be getting a larger exposure on top of that.
That's right. I mean, kids can choose whether they're going to drink coffee or eat too much bacon, right? Or their parents can, right? That's a choice.
Yeah.
But when a kid goes to school or a kid plays baseball, that kid doesn't have a choice. That's where the game is scheduled. That's where he has to show up for school by law. So why don't we make it a cleaner environment and help our kids out a little? For the convenience of one guy, a few guys doing landscaping, we're going to expose several thousand kids to an environmental toxin. Why does that make any sense to anybody?
It doesn't.
We need more concerned citizens. Please
absolutely.
Contact us at Non-Toxic Communities. Please make the commitment to work in your community with your city officials to bring about positive change.
And it can be as simple as just sending off an email. If they hear enough people care about this, then they will address the issue.
That's right. Well, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, I'm not going to say that it was easy for me in Irvine. It took me 2 years of work before I educated the PTA and got the PTA to vote and go to the school board.
Yeah.
And then it did take, some convincing. We had to get a big group together. We circulated a neighborhood petition that was not aggressive and nasty. It was just asking our city council to please bring in organic methods. And then we also brought them the solution. We said, here are the people who would like to have this happen. Big numbers, lots of kids with cancer, lots of families of kids with cancer. It turned out there was a cancer cluster in Irvine, one of the baseball players in my son's Little League died of cancer, brain tumor at the stem of his brain. And then, so you get the group together, and then the other part is you supply the training. Because in a lot of cities, even if they agree to go organic, then everyone says, oh no, now what do we do? What do we do? Because all the training out there is chemically based. Well, we will help you. We will put you in touch with consultants who will teach your staff in the successful methods. It's just a question of our city officials having the will to protect their citizens. And yes, it's inconvenient to learn new ways, but it's also a great thing for everyone involved, including the landscapers who are exposed every day to this stuff.
Absolutely. That crossed my mind. I was going to mention that. So you would think they would be very open to it, but maybe they will. Things will start coming around.
Well, I've spoken to staff and I've asked them around Irvine, how do you feel about this?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like the fact that you're managing things organically? And all of the staff was actually thrilled. In fact, this one guy started crying and he said, I can't believe a mom like you would care about our health. Like, he was surprised. And I was like, I care about everyone. I care about everyone who's exposed to these chemicals. And they were so grateful not to be exposed themselves, not to bring it home on their clothes, not to have to use those products anymore. The staff in Irvine loves it. They get paid the same either way. They don't care. And they are happy to be safer. It's the decision makers that have to be convinced. And I think that a lot of them just don't think about this. They don't realize who's on the front lines of this, our pets, our families, the employees. They just don't think about it. And a lot of people have been under the rather false assumption that the EPA is looking out for us in an adequate way. And in terms of these landscaping chemicals, I don't feel that that's the case.
And it just seems like they're understaffed, and maybe, like, I don't know, maybe it could touch on that a little bit, what you know about how it functions, the EPA, and where it's kind of failing.
Well, as you know, in the previous administration, there were a lot of cutbacks. It was very understaffed. But now, from what I hear, I don't work at the EPA. I know scientists who've retired from the EPA, but I would say the divisions between EPA scientists and EPA decision makers have increased. You have scientists who are saying, hey, wait a minute, we should think twice about this. We're seeing some danger. And decision makers who are more sort of beholden to politicians, Congress, lobbyists, who might make decisions that sway more toward the corporation's favor than the public's favor. There are a lot of politics in the department. And, scientists, while they're working in these departments, can't speak out, which is why the scientists I've spoken to are retired, because then they're free to talk to me about what they really think, the science they really know about. It's these departments are very political, and there's a lot involved with decisions like to ban Roundup or so on. 80% of our crops are sprayed with Roundup right now. The GMO crops, they're called Roundup Ready, and they're made to be sprayed with Roundup. So, those kinds of decisions would have a really big impact on our agricultural economy. So there are all kinds of decisions that go in at the government level, but on our local park level, city level, school level, there's no question that they should stop using these products and go for organic methods. Mm-hmm. And you can do it on different levels. Like if your budget, Irvine has a very healthy budget for landscaping, right? So it was probably a little easier for them. Other districts might have a smaller budget. So, excuse me, putting in different infrastructure and so on might be a really hard thing to achieve. But that's up to the city council to shift funds and say, for a couple of years, we're going to invest a little bit more in landscape, or we're going to cut back over here so we can get this going. And then after it gets going, then costs decrease and you can have your money back. Now, the more organic landscaping gets going, the lower those initial costs are turning out to be. In fact, I have experts who are now saying that we're going to be able to do it on par for cost, and then organic will drop. And that's the ultimate advantage, right? It works in your budget. looks beautiful. Citizens are happier, healthier, the employees are healthier. It's good all the way around. So the more this goes, the more people are getting used to it, and experts are working in all different regions, the more it's working out and showing that it benefits everyone's health. So it's all about the soil biology. It's all from the ground up, and it's not just about Roundup. It's not just about substituting one product. It's about taking care of everything from the soil biology up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And those methods can be taught. It's not complicated. It's surprisingly simple. When I took the NOFA certification course, I was actually surprised at how common sense and easy it is. Everyone should be doing it. There's just no question. And there's no excuse for exposing our kids and our families to those toxins. None.
Okay. Thank you. You know, I like to ask people a question, so I'm going to ask it to you now. What do you feel humanity needs to work on to make our world a better place?
Well, if I look from the point of view of non-toxic communities, for me, the priority should be reducing the toxic load on ourselves and on our future generations. We need to be paying attention to what we're exposing our kids to, and even, fetuses and little girls with their little eggs that were just born. What are we exposing our future generations to? And let's clean that up. Let's clean that up. Let's protect ourselves against these rising levels of chronic illness. Let's be healthier. Let's think about things from the soil biology to our gut flora and how it's all affecting us. I'm very grateful to the scientists that are doing work in endocrinology and really focusing on the gut flora and how it affects our general overall health and also our mental well-being. And I'm also grateful to everyone in the organic movement that are looking for better solutions and moving away from these chemicals.
Yeah, I totally understand and agree with that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing about this. I'm so happy that you started your organization, and I hope people reach out to you, or I hope it just makes them, more aware, and that they will start voicing an opinion or reaching out to the leaders that are leading their community to make changes. So
I hope so too. Please go to Non-Toxic Communities. Please make a donation if you can, and come to our site, and we will help you to make change in your community as well.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you. Bye, Lainey.